Hello everyone, welcome back to Edubbey Global Solution. Today we'll be discussing employment and unemployment. Moving to our slide, we have the definition of employment, unemployment, and what we know as full employment here. What do we mean by employment? Of course, employment can be run as an engagement of a person in the labor force in some occupations or business and also trade. And our unemployment can be defined as the situation where people in the labor force are actively looking for job but are currently unemployed, that is, they could not find work. And we have full employment, that is a situation where the entire labor force is being employed, that is, the unemployment rate will be what? Will be zero. Let us move to our next slide. We have just one past question here. Why must the macroeconomic aim of full employment conflict with the aim of stability price? Of course, we said earlier now that our full employment is where unemployment rate is zero. Now, why might the macroeconomic aim of full employment conflict with the aim of stable prices? Now we have full employment leads to higher cost of import. Is that so? Full employment leads to lower exports. That's not supposed to be the answer. Full employment leads to increased income inequality, or full employment leads to an increases in wages. Of course, if all the labor force are being employed, of course, full employment will lead to what? Increases in wages, that is their pay. Now we move to the next slide. Moving to the next slide, we now have the changes in the pattern of what? In the pattern of employment. What can be the changes in the pattern of employment in a particular country? Here we have to choose the multiple choice to know the changes of the pattern of unemployment. Of course, we have employed and self-employed. Of course, if you have to put, if in an economic development, employed and self-employed should be one of the changes in the pattern of employment. Now we move to the second point, the proportion of workers in the private and public sectors. Of course, the proportion of workers in the private and public sector can also determine the changes in the pattern of employment. We also have the high and low quality employment. Of course, if there is also high employment or low quality of employment, it also leads to changes in the pattern of employment. We move to structural changes here. Is it that when they lack demand, aggregate demand? No, that's supposed not to be the change in pattern of employment. We also have the proportion of women in employment. Of course, and when an economic is developed, any social attitude can also become progressive, and women are encouraged to work, so they will enter the labor force. And this can also change what? This can also change the pattern of employment. We also have the full-time and part-time workers. Of course, full-time workers and part-time workers can also change the pattern of employment. Now let us check here. We got it right. Let us move to the next slide. Moving to the next slide here, we also have the changes in the level of employment. As we have the changes in the pattern of employment, we also have what can change the level of employment here. Point one, we have the improving skills of human capital to make people more flexible in the workplace. That is, this one is talking about the what? Working condition of an employer. Providing stronger incentive to look for and accept work. That's regards to what? Bonus of workers, and increase the occupational and geographical mobility of labor. Also, the maintaining a sufficiently high level of demand and create enough new jobs. Now we move to the next slide. Moving to the next slide, we have one past question here related to what we have said earlier. Which combination of policy measure is most likely to increase the level of employment? Of course, we have not said this earlier, but you're supposed to guess the policy that's supposed to be the answer here. We have talked about what we have, as we have fiscal policy, monetary, and supply side policy. Now here we have which combination of policy measure is supposed to be likely to use in increasing the level of employment. Now let us check out our options here. We have increase general taxation and increase the rate of interest. If you are talking about taxation, remember we have fiscal policy, and when we are talking about monetary policy, we are talking about interest rate. Now, what can we do to increase the level of employment? Here we have the second option to be what? Decrease general taxation and decrease the rate of interest. Is that so? Increase general taxation and decrease the rate of interest, decrease general taxation and increase the rate of interest. What do you think can be the answer? Of course, it is decrease general taxation and also decrease the rate of interest at the same time. Now we move to the next slide. Moving to the next slide, we now have the measurement of unemployment. How do governments measure unemployment in a particular country? One, we have claimant count, and the second we have labor survey. How do government use claimant count in measuring unemployment rate? Of course, the government can count the total number of unemployment claims, that is we have allowances and benefits provided to the unemployed job seekers made in an economic to measure what? To measure the unemployment rate. And we also have the labor survey. Labor survey involves conducting survey among the entire labor force to collect data about unemployment, and that should be used. It can be used to questionnaire and a lot of data collection. Now we have the formula for calculating unemployment rate here. We have unemployed worker divided by the total labor force, that is total working population of individual in a country. We move to the next slide. Moving to the next slide, we now have the causes and type of unemployment. What are the type of unemployment and what can cause the type of unemployment at the same time? Now we have a temporary unemployment which arises from workers being in between jobs. Now, how do we express that? Which kind of unemployment is that? That is frictional unemployment. Here we also have an unemployment caused by long-term changes in what? In the pattern of demand and method of production. That is structural unemployment. That should be structural unemployment. And we have an unemployment caused by the lack of aggregate demand. That is what? Cyclical unemployment. We got that one right. That is the explanation for the causes and type of unemployment. Now we move to the next slide. Moving to the next slide, we now have the consequences of unemployment. What should be the effect of unemployment to what? To individual, to firms, and to government. Now, individual will be losing their working skill, lowering income and their living standard. Of course, when there is an unemployment rate for an individual, it will lead to low living standard for them. Of course, there will be lowering income since they could not get work to satisfy their needs, and this can also lead to poverty, homelessness, and ill health. Of course, that is part of living standard. And to firms may benefit from unemployment by employing unemployed workers to expand production. Of course, that is true, and it also reduce the national output of goods and services. Unemployment can also impose an opportunity cost on what? On an economic, which means what? Which means that economies is not using all of its resources when country is being unemployed. That is when individual is unemployed. Now we move to the next slide. Now, according to what we have said about unemployment, what do you think can be the policy to reduce what? To reduce unemployment. Now here we have promotion of industry in unemployed area. What do you think can be the result? Is that the amount of the policy to reduce unemployment? Of course, it should be when government is promoting industry in an unemployed area. Of course, the country will need, the industry will need more workers to work, so that was it will reduce unemployment rate. And we have the second one to be what? cutting unemployment benefit. Of course, when individuals are receiving unemployment benefit, in most of the time, most will not be seeking for job. And we also have restricting import and encourage export. Of course, that should also be the policy to reduce unemployment. Providing information is also part of policies to reduce unemployment, because frictional unemployment can be eliminated to an extent by making information available about job vacancy to the unemployed area. Now we also have expansionary policy. What are the expansionary policy to increases demand? Remember, we have the expansionary policy, that is like cutting down taxes and increasing government spending. Of course, that can also increase demand, which will also reduce unemployment rate. But we have increasing minimum wages. That should not be part of the policy to reduce unemployment, because increasing in minimum wages doesn't have anything to reduce in unemployment rate. We got it right. Let us move to the next slide. Moving to the next slide, we have past question here. Let us go through it. The retail trade in a country has unemployed workers in one region and job vacancies in another region. Wow. What could explain this? Cost of employing workers are lower when there is unemployment. Is that so? The geographical mobility of labor has increased. It's more expensive to live in the area where the retail jobs are available. Retailing demand the same skill everywhere. Now let us go back to the question. The retail trade in a country has unemployed workers in one region and job vacancy in another. Now, according to this option, it's supposed to be this answer. It is more expensive to live in the area where the retail job is available than another region, that is where there is the job vacancy. Now we move to the next slide. We also have past question here. Now the table compares the distribution of employment in selected industry in 2 years. Now here we have the table. How did the distribution of employment change between year 1 and year 2? Distribution of employment change between the year 1 and year 2. Now we have for primary sector here, we have the secondary sector rather. Now we have the primary sector here to be what? Agriculture, mining, and we also have the secondary sector here, we have manufacturing here. Now let us now check the option. How did the distribution of employment change between the year 1 and year 2 of primary sector and secondary sector? For our secondary sector here, we have year 1, it reduced from 4 to 2. And we have our year 2, it also reduced from what? It also fell from 3 to 2. And for our secondary sector here, for year 1 here, it's unchanged, and for year 2 here also, it's also unchanged. Now let us check our option here. We have rows rises unchanged. No, that's not how we name our answer. Rows fell. No, our primary sector fell and the secondary is unchanged. That should be our answer. Let us check out. Wow, we got it right. This will be the end of this class. Stay tuned to our website www.edubbey.com. See you in the next class.